Welcome to Daily Living with Father Chapin. Today, we continue our journey through the 22nd chapter of the Gospel of Matthew. The Pharisees went off and plotted how they might entrap Jesus in speech. They sent their disciples to him with the Herodians, saying, "Teacher, we know that you're a truthful man and that you teach the way of God in accordance with the truth. And you are not concerned with anyone's opinion, for you do not regard a person's status. Tell us then, what is your opinion? Is it lawful to pay the census tax to Caesar or not?" Knowing their malice, Jesus said, "Why are you testing me, you hypocrites? Show me the coin that pays the census tax." Then they handed him the Roman coin. He said to them, "Whose image is this and whose inscription?" They replied, "Caesar's." At that he said to them, "Then repay to Caesar what belongs to Caesar, and to God what belongs to God." The gospel of the Lord. And my friend, what a gospel it is. This is Daily Living on Father Chapin. You stick around. We'll be right back. We're going to talk about this gospel and a few other things here as we consider God's word and how we might be able to apply it into our daily living. Welcome back to Daily Living. The Pharisees went off and plotted how they might entrap Jesus in his speech. They sent their disciples to him with the Herodians. So here we have the religious leadership of Israel, and they're convening a council. Jesus has become a problem. He is a thorn in their side. He threatens everything they're all about. They've been trying to trap him with his words in religious matters, and they have failed. So now they're trying to go after him on political grounds. We're in the 22nd chapter of Matthew. It says that they sent their disciples to him with the Herodians. So right away, couple red flags. Number one, says they sent their disciples, meaning that they themselves did not go. They're sending their disciples. Why would they do that? Well, may I suggest they're doing this because they're cowards. They have already been made to look foolish. Jesus has sent them off like scalded dogs, and now they're sending the apprentices, right? And who's going with them? The Herodians, which is amazing when you understand the fact that the Pharisees hated the Herodians. The Pharisees who ran the temple hated the Herodians because the Herodians were the political arm of Israel. They were not religious folk. They were government officials. They worked for Herod, thus the name Herodians. They were secular. They were not practicing Jews. They had no real interest in religion. And they were considered by the Pharisees and many in the nation of Israel to be dirty dogs, traitors to Israel, no better than the tax collectors. They were in bed with those evil Romans. But the truth is that the only real difference between the Herodians and the Pharisees is that the Herodians didn't try to hide it, that they were in collusion with Rome. They weren't pretending like the Pharisees. But anyway, the Pharisees hated the Herodians, but the one thing they hated even more was Jesus, because he threatened everything they were about. So you can see right out of the gate how these two groups make very interesting bedfellows. The Herodians were there for another reason. The well-crafted plot necessitated their presence. And trust me, this was a well-crafted plot. "Teacher, we know that you are a truthful man and that you teach the way of God in accordance with the truth. and that you are not concerned with anyone's opinion, for you do not regard a person's stature. Talk about the butter up, really. That term, the way of God, coming directly out of the Old Testament. This idea that one can be led by God. Phrases such as a light on my path or directing my steps come to mind. Now, remember, not too long ago, the religious leadership of Israel was questioning Jesus, by whose authority do you do these things? But all that seems to be a distant memory, because now they're saying, we know you speak for God. I mean, that's where they start. And that you're a truthful man. You want to talk about buttering up? Really? They're just lathering it on to the point that it becomes almost laughable. And I love this. We know that you are not a respecter of a person's stature. And of course they know this because they have witnessed him time and time again challenge the religious leadership, the high priests, the Pharisees, the Sadducees, and making them look like fools. So what they're saying, in so many words, is we were there, we saw what you did, and we are on your side. And with that, they throw out the trap, and it is a beautiful trap. Tell us then, what is your opinion? Is it lawful to pay the census tax to Caesar or not? Now, you got to give these guys credit because this was a good one. I mean, this was the perfect trap. Is it lawful to pay census tax to Caesar or not? You see, if he says yes, then immediately the whole crowd that's standing around would understand in that moment, well, he ain't no Messiah, right? Because remember, the nation of Israel is waiting on a warrior king. Someone who's going to rise up, pull out the Ark of the Covenant, and with the power of Yahweh, drive Herod's puppet government into the sea as they restore Israel to the glory days of old. So he can't say yes, but on the other hand, if he says no, you should not pay taxes to Caesar, well, that's not going to work out. And this is where the Herodians come in. Because you see, they represent the government of Rome. And they're standing right there. All they have to do is snap their fingers and a garrison of Roman troops would descend upon Jesus and arrest him for sedition. Remember now, they're standing right in the middle of the temple. Holiest ground in all of the world, according to the practicing Jew. And Rome had a garrison of soldiers built into the walls of the temple to keep an eye on things, much like a modern day security camera. So here it is. The trap has been set. Like I said, it's a beautiful trap. I can just see the smirks on their faces. Oh, we got you now. The gotcha question. Remember not too long ago when they had challenged Jesus, asking by whose authority do you do those things? He had asked them a gotcha question about John the Baptist. Remember that? He said, I'll tell you by whose authority I do these things. But first, why don't you tell me by whose authority John the Baptist did what he did? Now, of course, they're in a pickle because the crowds that are all standing there regarded John the Baptist as a prophet. So that if they say that he's of human origin, well, there would have been a riot. But if they conceded that, well, he had been sent by God, then they would be forced to explain why they didn't listen to him. So, what do they do? What do they do? What does any politician do when they don't want to answer a question? They ignore the question. But now the tables are turned, and they are presenting Jesus with a gotcha question. But see, he's no politician. Jesus does not dodge the question. Oh, no, no, no. Knowing their malice, he says, why are you testing me, you hypocrites? I bet they ain't smirking now. Why are you testing me, you hypocrites? That Greek word for hypocrite hypocritus, which means stage actor, pretender. You know, the Greek tragedies, you know, the two-sided face, you know, one side's laughing, other side's crying. That's what a hypocrite is. One who pretends to be a certain way, but acts in the opposite way. And this is exactly what's going on here with the religious leaders. Who is smirking now? And immediately they're back on their heels. They're on the defensive. And what does Jesus say? He says, show me that coin. Show me the coin that pays the census tax. Now, this coin that pays the census tax, it's a very specific coin. It's called a denarius. Rome minted many different kinds of coins, as so did the Jews. But the denarius was a silver coin that was minted specifically to pay taxes. Now, the tax that they're referring to, this census tax, also known as Caesar's tax, also known as the poll tax, is a yearly tax that every person within a Roman-occupied territory must pay. Every man, every woman, every child. Of course, this wasn't the only tax. Israel was heavily taxed. There was taxes on just about everything that moved. All traded goods were taxed. Tax on all livestock. There was taxes on all the produce that they grew. There was even taxes on the fish that came out of Lake Gennesaret. This is Daily Living. I'm Father Chapin. You stick around. We'll be right back. And we're going to continue to talk about this amazing gospel that comes to us here as we consider God's Word and how we might be able to apply it into our daily living. Hi, this is Father Chapin, host of Daily Living with Father Chapin. It is such a pleasure to be able to come into your home each and every week and share the good news. But it's a bit expensive. So at the end of the broadcast, we're rolling out a new program of partnership. I'd ask you to grab a piece of paper and a pencil so that maybe you can jot it down and consider it. But what do you say we just get right on back to the show? Welcome back to Daily Living. Now, just for the break, we were talking about the fact that Israel is an occupied nation, occupied by Rome, and they are heavily taxed. Now, keep in mind, in our gospel today, we are standing in the temple. This is the holiest ground in all of Israel, in fact, all the world, according to the practicing Jew. And this temple had its own rules, and of course, it had its own taxation. It was called the temple tax. And the temple tax could never be paid by a Roman denarii, that pagan Roman denarii. It had to be paid by a coin known as a shekel, which was minted by the Jews. Let's just talk for a second about currency. When you think about currency, when a government prints money or mints coins, such as in this case, that currency represents the authority of that government. If I were to show up at the local Walmart here in Elkins with a Mexican peso or a euro from Italy, it would be worthless. Why? Because Europe and Mexico do not have authority in this country. So their currency is of no value because currency represents the authority of the government. So given that fact, and given the fact that Israel is an occupied nation by Rome, the denarius, which is a Roman coin, represents tyranny. Occupation represents abuse. But let's drill down on this denarius. Let's talk about this particular coin. On one side of the denarius is the face of Caesar. And on the other side is an inscription. It was printed, Tiberius, son of the divine Augustus, highest of high priests. So, not only does this coin, the denarius, represent the repression and tyranny of Rome, at the same time is claiming that the Roman emperor is divine. So, it's the ultimate in idolatry to the nation of Israel. It is pagan worship at its worst. So, given that, how could anyone ever pay a temple tax with a denarius. Consequently, the denarius was not only was it not accepted in the temple, it was banned from the temple grounds. You couldn't even have a denarius in your pocket when you were in the temple. And this is, of course, where the money changers come in. Remember the money changer tables that Jesus had overturned as he screamed, "You have made my Father's house a den of thieves." Remember them? The money changers were there because they would gladly take your unholy pagan worship denarius and exchange it for their holy Yahweh worshiping shekel. And of course, there was a nice markup in the exchange rate along the way because everybody's making money. It's a well-oiled machine, my friend, but back to our story. So here we are. We're in the middle of the temple. The disciples of the Pharisees, along with Herodians, have just laid a trap, hoping to corner Jesus. You got all these people, they're standing around, and they ask him, is it lawful to pay the census tax to Caesar or not? And Jesus says, show me the coin. Show me the coin that pays the census tax. Then they handed him the Roman coin. Now, remember, they're standing in the middle of the temple. This coin is banned from the property. Yet some religious leader, probably some disciple of a Pharisee, foolishly pulls out the coin. Here it is, Jesus. And I can just hear the gasping of the crowd. Oh my Yahweh. This is not a good day for the religious leadership of Israel. Jesus has just called them out as being hypocrites, and now they're proving his point. So when you think about it, he's already won the debate, and he hadn't even gotten started yet. He could have walked away right then, but of course he doesn't. In fact, he's just getting started. There's a stunned silence that comes across the crowd, and Jesus asks them a question. And it's a very obvious question. Whose image is this? And whose inscription? Obviously referring to the image of Caesar and the idolatrous words on the back. You know, they say a good lawyer never asks a question that he or she does not already know the answer to. They say Caesar. And Jesus says, then repay to Caesar what belongs to Caesar, and to God what belongs to God. Immediately, Jesus changes the or to an and. And this is huge. And it's also very true. Caesar printed this coin and had it put into circulation for one reason: to be repaid to him. He didn't wake up one morning and say, you know, I think everybody deserves a bit of silver. What do you say we print this coin? No. He printed the coin to be repaid to him. And that remains true to this day. Whether you're looking in your wallet or your bank statement, your 401k, and you make the statement, this is my money, you need to understand, my friend, that money was here long before you ever got here, and it will be here long after you're gone. So what Jesus is really saying here today is give back to Caesar what is already his. It's got his image on it, give it back to him. But at the same time, give to God what is his, what has his image on it, which, by the way, is you. Let us make man in our own image, in and after our likeness. What does that mean? What that means is that every one of us has God's image imprinted upon us. God has printed himself on you like a coin. He is minted on your soul. Jesus is not anti-money. Money is necessary. You got to have money to live. Money is not the root of all evil, my friend. It is the love of money. That's the problem. And the issue that Jesus is bringing to the forefront in our gospel today, and he is speaking to you today, is simply this: what do you worship? Jesus says no one can serve two masters. He will either hate one and be devoted to the other, or else he will love one and despise the other. You cannot serve both God and mammon. Mammon, of course, means money. In other words, instead of you concentrating on whether you should pay Caesar or not, maybe you might want to concentrate on worshiping and serving the one who made you in his own image. Do not store up treasure on earth, my friend, but rather store up for yourself treasure in heaven. St. Paul writes, therefore, I urge you, brothers and sisters, in God's mercy, to offer your bodies as living sacrifice and holy and pleasing to God. That is your true and proper worship. In other words, let us not get caught up in this mammon world. Sure, we should pay our taxes, be a good citizen, but then let us get our mind on trying to listen to what God is trying to teach us every day. What is God trying to communicate with you today? Are you listening? By the way, what he's trying to communicate to you today is that he wants an intimate relationship with you. And if you're living your life 24/7, lost in this mammon world, as you show up to church an hour a week, maybe you're paying attention, maybe you're not. My friend, you are living dangerously upside down. It all comes down to this. If you are not seeking God in your daily living, what are you really giving God? What are you really repaying God? That's what Jesus is trying to teach us today. It's a fundamental truth. God is not sitting around waiting for our leftovers. God seeks and values gifts that we bring him, whether that be gifts of praise, gifts of thanksgiving, gifts of service, gifts of material offerings. He's not looking for a tax. He's looking for a relationship. Relationships are very important to him. And not just with him, but with each other. Consider the cross for just a moment, my friend. The cross has two beams, right? One's vertical, one's horizontal. The vertical beam represents my relationship with God, me and God, right? The horizontal beam represents my relationship with you and I. You see, I find God in you. You find God in me. We find God in each other. And if you bring your gift to the altar and there remember that you've got an issue with your brother, leave your gift and go reconcile with your brother first, right? And then come and make your offering. What does that mean? Well, what that means is that if you are going to church every Sunday and dropping money in the offering plate while you are hating your brother, your offering is worthless. What Jesus is saying to these religious leaders in the temple today, and by the way, through extension us, is stop focusing on this mammon world. Stop focusing on this world. Because, hey, we are in this world, that's for sure. But we are not of this world. Yes, my friend. We are in this world, but we are not of this world. And as long as we are in this world, let us act like the image that is imprinted on our hearts. Let us give this world what is this world, but let us give our God what is God's. Which, by the way, in case you're wondering, is ourselves. Won't you give yourself to God today? You know, every day in this country, somebody does something nice for somebody else. Today, why don't you let that somebody be you? This is Daily Living. I'm Father Chapin. Hope you can come back next week and we'll do it again. Until then, I hope you let God live in your life. And I bless you in the name of the Father and of the Son and of the Holy Spirit. Hi, this is Father Chapin, host of Daily Living with Father Chapin. Want to thank you for watching the broadcast. I thought I might want to share with you the miracle of daily living, and it is a miracle. Daily Living began about 10 years ago as a radio show on a small AM station in Beckley, West Virginia. Probably powered by 2 AA batteries, I could have probably reached more people yelling out the window of the rectory. But it morphed into a TV show on one station, reaching about 200,000 households in southern West Virginia. Today, it reaches over 51 million households across this country. I get letters every day from people as far away as Hawaii, Massachusetts, Nevada, Arizona, Louisiana, Florida, North Carolina. And the theme that seems to arise from the program letters is that people feel that they're learning something, that it means something to them. They're being fed. And so they want to help keep this show on the air. Our show is 100% funded from private donations such as viewers like yourself. If you would like to consider a Daily Living partnership, I would ask you to consider a monthly gift of whatever amount to Daily Living, 181 St. Brendan Way, Elkins, West Virginia, 26241, or go online at mydailyliving.com, tax deductible, of course. And I will send you a script of the show if you provide me an email, a monthly newsletter, as well as a small gift of appreciation. And together, we can continue to take the good news to a lost world. Once again, thank you for watching the broadcast.